I'm sure most of you have written web applications in the past where a client has made a request of the server you've written. That server then goes to the database or something to collect some information, loads an HTML file from the local hard disk, massages that based on the data it's gotten from the database, maybe generates some new content, and then spits that resulting HTML back down to the client, who then uses maybe something like a web browser to render that as a page for the user to view. Node.js is actually perfectly good at doing this as well, and we've done this with some projects we've worked on recently, and it's perfectly fine for this. But for the purposes of these live lessons, I'd like to introduce you to a different way of doing things, just because it's always nice to see something new, and it'll help us explore and demonstrate some concepts in Node that I'd really like to show you. Okay. So what I have here is a new version, or sort of a picture of the new way we're going to do things. And of course, as before, the center point of all of the work is the client web browser as it is here. And like in any traditional thing, the client web browser will first go to the server and request a particular page. What we're going to do differently now, though, is we're only going to return a simple little page stub. So our Node server, instead of massaging and working with HTML, is just going to return a simple little stub with one minor little tweak. That stub is going to have, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back. That stub is going to have some other files that it needs to download and a little JavaScript bootstrapper, which is going to actually perform all the work of generating the final page. So the client browser, based on the information in the page stub, will then go and get that JavaScript bootstrapper. You'll see here we've split apart our Node server and then maybe some sort of file server or contents delivery network. Actually, for the samples we're using in this chapter, this is all going to be one sort of code base. They're just going to have different looking URLs. So I just wanted to demonstrate that logically I might have my Node server only doing JSON and this page stub, and I might have the other content on a sort of file server, some sort of remote content delivery network like Amazon's S3, but we'll just have them all in our little server.js. So the browser then gets that bootstrapper, and the bootstrapper has instructions on how to actually build the page, and each page will be different. Some maybe will have complicated instructions and some will have simpler. So the next thing the bootstrapper will need to do is actually get the data it needs to render the page, and it'll do that from the JSON API server. So maybe I need to download a user object, or for my albums application, my photo sharing, I need to get a list of all the albums that are currently available. Finally, I download any other sort of, or next I download any other HTML templates or page components that I need to render the page, like images or something. And then finally, that bootstrapper assembles the final HTML and then inserts it or injects it into the browser, which then renders it as it always does. So that's how we're going to do our work. The rendering is going to be done using something called a template engine. And a template engine is just some way to sort of write a skeleton HTML file that you can then use this template engine to fill in the details given some data that you've been given from somewhere else, for example, some JSON data. Now, there are a lot of server-side and client-side template engines. Jade is a very, very popular one that's available both on server and client. But for this live lesson, we're going to be working with something called Mustache or Moustache. I'm not really sure how they call it. And it's again available on the server and client side, but as you see here from the way we're going to do it, we're going to do all of our templating and page rendering on the client. So I'm going to go here to the web browser, and you'll see I've gone to the GitHub page for Mustache. And this page is absolutely fantastic because not only does it have all the code that you're welcome to browse through, but it has some excellent documentation and sort of tutorials and ideas on how you can play with Mustache. And in the next part of this lesson, we'll show you exactly how we're going to use Mustache and some examples for it. So, to make all of this work, though, we are going to need to update our Node server, sort of combined Node server file server here, to serve some new content types and some new file types and new types of data and everything. So let's go ahead and make those changes now. So What I've done here is I've copied over the static file content, the version of our server that serves up static files, and I've renamed it to server.js. I've made a new app folder here, and what I've done is I've copied over the albums folder, and I've also got the content folder here with some stuff in it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I've also created a new folder called templates. We're going to want to modify our URL scheme to not only support content, but now we're also going to want to support templates / blah.html because we want to separate those out logically on our file server. And then also we're going to have pages / xxx. So we'll want to have, for example, we'll have pages / home. So the home page for our website will be pages home. So we need to modify our our API / file server to support these new URL types. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I need to do is my serve static content function now needs to know not only the name of the file it's going to serve, but also what folder it's going to serve that file from. So I'm going to actually modify this to take a folder and a file. And then I can just say the file name equals folder plus file, and I don't need to do that anymore. So now the serve static content here, I will say core url.subster09. That's the name of the folder I'm going to get from because actually, I can just say, I know it's always content here, like that. Don't even need to extract it. And then I need the name of the file, which is core url.subster from the 9th character on, like that. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perfect. So now I have the path and the file to load. So let's go ahead now and add support for templates. So I'm going to duplicate this because it's really quite similar. And templates like that. And then similarly like that. Now the problem is templates is longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Great. Like that. So now I should be able to not only serve content from my content folder, but also from templates. Let's go ahead here, and hopefully we've typed that all in correctly. Node server. Yes, there's no syntax errors or anything like that. So in my content folder, you'll see, oopsie, dear content, there we go. You'll see I have some new stuff. To do some of our AJAX calls and stuff on the client browser, we're going to use the jQuery web framework. I'm assuming most of you have seen this before. It's just a standard client-side framework. I've also got the file here, mustache.js, which is sort of the templating engine we're going to use, and I'll talk about that a bit in the next part as well. And then I've got a style.css, and you can put whatever you want in that to sort of modify the outputs of our program to sort of make it look nicer as you wish. And then I've got home.js, which is one of those bootstrappers that I was talking about before, and we'll address that in a little bit later on. So again, I should be able to run the server, and now I should be able to, let me show you what's in the templates folder too. So in the templates, I've just got 2 basic templates. We're only going to use one for this lesson, and that is the home template. So let's run the server and make sure that we can get the content. So I should be able to say curl-o jQuery.js localhost 8080 content, and the name of the file is that. Oopsie, let's actually select that properly. So I'm going to try to get that file. And jq.js is 93,637, and then we'll see in content, you need to stop doing that. jQuery is like that. Perfect. Okay, so we now can get things from our content folder. So now let's also verify that our templates folder works. Templates, and we want to get home.html. And that's 344 bytes. And let's see what our templates folder has. Perfect. Our home.html looks just good. jQuery. I actually used the same file name. So, okay, so we're now able to serve up the 2 additional types of content. All right, now we need to modify the server to support this last sort of URL scheme here. We have it doing content, we have it doing templates, so now we just need to add support for this new pages subtype here. So I'm going to be lazy and copy and paste that. And I'm going to say if it's equal to pages, then I'm going to write a new function called serve page with the request and the response object. Let's go ahead and write that now. So serve page rec res, and the first thing we need to do is actually get the name of the page we're going to generate or serve up. So we'll do that by remembering that we have the URL and the information already here on the request object. So I'll say rec.parseURL.pathname.subster from 7 on. Excuse me. Okay, now we are going to use a new function we haven't seen before called fs.readFile. And unlike before where we sort of opened the file and looped through reading it, this one just reads the entire file into memory right away as a string. If we'll tell it to do it as a string. And that can be really inefficient, but we're loading in a very small file of a few hundred bytes here, so we really don't mind at all. So we're going to load in that basic.html, and then we're going to say we want it in UTF-8, and then we're going to get the response function here, which if we get an error, we'll say res.write head 503, oh no, server is very unhappy, or something like that. Can't load template, or can't load stub. Let's call it like that. And then oopsie, let's call that content type. We'll actually just do text.html because this is probably rendering from the browser. And then we'll do res.end like that. Okay, if it did load successfully, now we have our contents in the format we want. So we need to basically just go back to basic.html here, and we need to replace page name with the name of the bootstrapper to load, or the name of our current page, which we've already extracted here. So let's make that magic happen. So first I'm going to say res.write head 200 content type text.html or /html like that. And then let's say res.end, and we want to say contents.replace page name with page name like that. And that should be it. We get the page name from the URL, we read in the stub, and then we replace the macro here, the page name macro, with the name of the bootstrapper file we're going to load. So let's go ahead and give that a spin. So I'm going to say node server.js, and here I'm going to say curl localhost 8080/pages/home. And you'll see we get HTML down, and indeed our Java bootstrapper macro has been expanded to be the name of the macro that we want. So you will notice, though, that no other page contents are generated because curl is literally just downloading only the resource that you tell it to. So all of the work will be done after the browser has downloaded this and these scripts have told it to continue and do something else. So with that under our belts, boy, I really say under our belts a lot, don't I? Anyway, with that under our belts, in the next part, we'll go ahead and take a closer look at Mustache.